This program is brought to you by National Gallery Singapore.
Singapore's pioneer artist Georgette Chen was a prolific painter and enigmatic woman. She left behind a legacy of the single largest collection of 105 paintings and more than 500 letters owned by the National Gallery Singapore. This is the story of her extraordinary life, a riveting tale of love.
Dearest Yufeng, life is much the same for me. No sign of retirement, alas. No sign of an art show yet. You are now in autumn, which used to be my favorite season, but soon it will get very cold again.
With the year's last burst of beauty, autumn touched Georgette Chen with its loveliest smile. The season lifted the artist's spirits with news of her first breakthrough in Paris. In 1930, Salon de Tom gave young Georgette a recognition rarely received by Asian female artists. A painting titled View on the Seine to Andely was selected by the Salon for exhibition.
Oui, la présence des artistes venus d'Asie et de Chine est très rare au Salon d'automne, jusque justement dans les années 30. Elle représentait en gros 1/8 du contingent d'artistes qui exposait au Salon d'automne. Donc elle est pour moi doublement méritoire en tant que femme et en tant que chinoise.
作品被入选沙龙，又是秋季沙龙，这个对女性来说是代表她的作品是被承认的，在当时。 她不是唯一的，但是也是很重要的一位，就是在整个中国绘画艺术史里面，代表女性艺术家，她也是前卫的一位。
Georgette's romance with art began in this enchanting city, Paris. A city that once celebrated strong aesthetic theories. It also witnessed brilliant revolts against the Art Academy. The public wanted to see works that were rejected by the official Salon de Paris. In response to the outcry, Emperor Napoleon III started Salon des Refugiés in 1863 to exhibit the rejects.
One of the most important works shown at the first Salon des Refugiés was Edward Manet's Déjeuner sur la Herbe. Which subsequently went on to become one of the most important post-impressionist paintings.
In the same spirit, Salon d'Automne had been showcasing the works of the greats and future greats of the art world every autumn since 1903. The School of Paris epitomized the birth of modernity, the freedom of self-expression. Soon, many post-impressionist movements such as Fauvism and Cubism saw artists painting in bold colors and brushstrokes.
Paris a bénéficié tout au long du 19e siècle de deux atouts, son enseignement et les salons. Jusqu'en 1920, Paris est la capitale par laquelle on doit absolument passer. Vous avez des académies qui donc offrent des possibilités nouvelles d'enseignement, plus de 150 expositions par an.
As the art mecca of the time, Paris was the dream destination of many budding artists. Georgette, who spent her formative years in this vibrant city, was totally enthralled by its allure. She was then in her early 20s, impressionable and hungry for knowledge.
And I can tell you how much I loved Paris, because not only is it a beautiful place, but for a student it's a wonderful place. I usually went to the museum, particularly every day, not only to work and to paint there, but to look at the beautiful statues and old paintings of the museum. What I like is the freedom of painting whatever you like, visiting places where Utrillo's family used to live, and paint along a certain part of Paris, feeling that we are all starving together.
Georgette attended art classes in two renowned schools between 1927 and 1930. Académie Kulaozi was an alternative to the official École des Beaux-Arts, or School of Fine Arts, which was considered too conservative. The academy not only accepted female students, it allowed them to draw nude male models as well. Académie Bellule, on the other hand, conducted workshops on nude paintings, a subject its founder Bellule was famous for as a painter.
In the classical school, I would draw a hand with all its lines and veins and muscles and anatomy in a detailed way. In the freer studios, emphasis would be laid more on the ensemble of a picture.
Through these works, you can get a sense of her keen interest in close observation of her subject, as well as a careful rendition of the human form.
Georgette displayed strong affinities with the post-impressionists and her contemporaries like Maurice Assouline and Chapoulin Mizy in Paris. She cited Utrillo and Matisse as her influences, while critics often compared her early works to Cézanne, Van Gogh, and to a lesser extent, Coho and Fauvist painter Margui.
Cézanne was sometimes regarded as a father of modern art in the West, mainly because he introduced the idea of composition as design, if you like, and moving away from single point perspective. Then you could place apples and oranges in different angles so that you create a kind of formal interest rather than being faithful to however the fruits will look to your eyes.
Like Cézanne, Georgette was concerned with the textures and volume of the objects. The close and often top viewpoint appears to flatten the depth of the image. Still life with cut apple and orange was one of her earliest oil paintings. It was a rare piece painted on wood instead of canvas.
In this work, you really get a sense of immediacy. It's not a carefully arranged composition of fruits with the knife half embedded into the fruit. Actually, Georgette was interrupted as she was going about this very simple domestic act. And in the composition, you also see that one of the trays is kind of partially cut off by the upper frame of the picture. So it's as if somebody has taken a very casual snapshot of the scene. So this sense of immediacy was something that many modern artists of that period were striving towards.
We had this vase or vessel inside the apple and orange painting. I think it could be exactly the same vessel that we see in Nestor Dunes in the late 40s piece, which probably was done in Hong Kong. We know that the father was an antique dealer, and it could have been something that was given to her by her father, and she kept it. And this same vessel appears in both paintings.
While in Paris, Georgette was also exposed to the appreciation of outdoor painting. She loved painting in the open, or en plein air in French. Some of Georgette's early works included landscapes captured in different parts of France.
I think what strikes me most about these early landscape paintings is the color and the quality of light that Georgette Chen manages to convey. So you really could get the sense that she was out there in a kind of northern European light, and where most of the colors are quite muted and neutralized. This interest in being outdoors, capturing the fleeting effects of light, being close to your subject matter so that you could best convey your feelings towards your subject. I think this is something that you can see in many of Georgette Chen's works.
Although her still life and landscapes have often been compared with that of various post-impressionist artists, Georgette was never swept along by the wave of popular imitation.
It seems that I have passed by many art trends such as Dadaism, Cubism, and more recently kinetic or pop. I have just continued to be attracted by the people around me, their lives, objects, and the glorious landscape of Mother Nature.
While Western painting tradition focuses on figure, color, and paint, Chinese masters celebrate the energy of the line. Georgette was once caught between the East and West. When she was a child, her father expected her to learn Chinese painting. But Georgette persuaded him to look west.
Finally, I so convinced him that he found a professor in Western painting and insisted that I buy 2 easels, 2 sets of colors, so that he too could learn to handle the charcoal with me.
Art bound daughter and father together. But eventually, it was the world of politics that would intertwine their fates and change Georgette's destiny.
My first experience with paint began as a baby, when I squeezed out crimson lait from my sister's color tubes. However, I started to study painting seriously in Shanghai under a private teacher.
Do red. Do red.
Good.
Zhang Jingjiang, a wealthy art and antique dealer, hired a Russian oil painter to teach his daughters, Georgette and Helen.
No. Do red. Do red. Red.
Victor Porczewski often confused Helen with his poor English. He meant to ask the girls to paint more boldly in the expressionist style.
Understand?
To the girls' relief, he had a creative approach to teaching.
Put 10 figures, nude, in it.
Georgette was 16 when she convinced her father, Zhang Jingjiang, to let her study oil painting. With the backing of her father's fabulous wealth, there was little Georgette could not wish for in her youth. The Tang ancestors built their wealth in Nanxun, a water town with over 700 years of history. Between the 16th and 19th century, Nanxun emerged as one of the first entrepreneurial regions in the south of the Yangtze River. It became a commodity economy situated between Jiangsu and Zhejiang provinces in China. The town's wealth was built on trading the 3 S: soy, salt, and silk.
那么在那个时候，南浔有一个称为叫4象8牛，什么意思？就是用动物的大小来比喻之下人家的资产。比如说象，当时在衡量，就他家资产才500万两白银以上，那么牛就是100万两以上。 狗就是30万到50万两，所以称为是4象8牛，72斤狗，就南巡就是富人家，那么他们当下就是象。
This house was built by Zhang Shiming, Georgette's grand uncle, in 1905. The East-West architectural synthesis reflects the time when trade with the West first began to create wealth for a handful of Chinese. Located 2 kilometers south of Yidetang, or the Hall of Exemplary Virtue, is Zhang Jingjiang's house called Zundetang, or the Hall of Respect. Besides his mastery of Chinese paintings and calligraphy, Zhang Jingjiang was known to be the most radical of the family's 9 children.
张信教这个人呢，很反传统的啦。他年轻的时候好交朋友，思想比较开放。这个人，法国正好当时是比较开放的，他这个思想跟这个土壤，在这个土壤上面，这个思想的这个火花就灿烂，开的就是更加灿烂。
In 1900, Zhang Jingjiang married Yao Hui, a Suzhou woman 2 years his junior. They had 5 daughters. Georgette, whose Chinese name is Zhang Liying, was the 4th child. Not only did she inherit congenital arthritis from her father, Georgette grew to be a chip off the old block. She was a tennis champion in her youth, a fine horsewoman, and shared her father's love for painting. Younger sister Helen said this in her unpublished memoir.
I would say the most talented was my sister Georgette. Georgette was a very dignified, very elegant person. She was tiny. She resembled a dainty little doll.
According to Helen, she and Georgette were born in Paris. But various documents showed Georgette could have been born in China. Wherever she was born, it was certain that her family spent much time in Paris. Zhang Jingjiang, a Chinese diplomat, was sent to France in 1902. He was very adventurous and somewhat eccentric. He started many companies in Paris. While some, like the antique business known as Tong Ying, succeeded, others, like the opulent Kai Yuan tea shop, failed miserably.
He must have had great wealth in order to do all this, keep his family in style, and give generously to the revolution as well. The family was in Paris because my father was engaged in revolutionary activities and had been sent to Paris to keep him out of trouble.
(1906), the year Georgette was born. It was also the year that changed the fates of 2 great men. Staunchly anti-Manchu, Zhang Jingjiang had long wanted to meet renowned revolutionary leader Dr. Sun Yat-sen. His dream came true during one of his business trips between Europe and Asia. By then, 29-year-old Zhang was already crippled by severe arthritis.
等等，你不要避开我，我知道你是硕文。
你到底想要什么？我知道你为清廷效命。
你别以为我是反对你的，我却是最赞成你的人。
他呢一下子遇到了这个孙中山，他就革命有了寄托，他这个思想就找到了一个归宿，从此他就进入了辛亥革命的惊涛骇浪。
我们坐下来谈吧。
好。
Zhang was so inspired by Dr. Sun's vision and revolutionary struggles that he pledged his full and unconditional support on the spot. But he had to do it secretly for fear of Chinese spies.
我的信念。我在法国做生意，非常乐意支持你。你一需要钱，就打个电报给我。我们用这个暗号吧 ：A 即1万元 ，B 即2万元 ，C 代表3万元，以此类推，最高可达5万元。
后来把这个开一茶店卖掉，通运公司也卖掉了，连自己上海的这个花园房子都卖掉，变成了什么呢？辛亥革命的活动经费啊！
那笔钱已经收到了。
太好了，我们的革命计划可以进行了。
Overnight, Zhang's money became the lifeblood of Dr. Sun's revolutionary effort. His contribution became widely acclaimed.
孙中山称他为中华第一奇人，蒋介石称他为恩师、恩人道师，毛泽东称他经济头脑活络。你看看3个中国的伟人对他的评价。
With time and energy invested entirely in his business and China's politics, Zhang Jingjiang hardly spent time with his family in Paris. But he and his wife Yao Hui doted on their 5 daughters, often giving them the best. Georgette and her sisters attended an exclusive private school, Lycée Jules Ferry. They learned French and gained an appreciation for Western music, dance and art, which they indulged in the comfort of their house at Place Saint-Georges. In a letter written in 1963 to her friend Sura, Georgette gave a rare glimpse of her favorite childhood haunts.
The white and black swans in the famous Parc Monceau. Their grace enchanted me, and I used to watch them for hours on end and take bread to feed them. This is the secret for my determination to memorize Sasor's swan, which described them so well. Another favorite haunt of my childhood was the Chevaux de Bois at the Tuileries Gardens, just next to the equally famous Louvre Museum.
Georgette's serene childhood was soon disrupted by the First World War that broke out in Europe. In 1917, Georgette's parents decided to move to a safer place for the sake of their daughters. But a tragedy struck, one that Georgette never spoke or wrote about in her letters and essays. Untouched by the war, New York would have been a perfect place for Georgette to grow up in. But in 1918, a year after her family moved over, a freak accident killed her 39-year-old mother, Yao Hui. Suddenly, Georgette and her sisters lost the care of their devoted mother, their only source of parental guidance. The girls went under the care of their maternal uncle C.C. Yao and his wife Ivy in New York. At the same time, their father Zhang Jingjiang, who was totally absorbed in revolutionary activities, stayed in China.
他的孙中山的关系简直是无法形容的了。所以你看到孙中山过世的时候，张经常每天就守候在孙中山边上，把他每一天的生病的情况全部记下来。你看看这两人感情是什么一种感情？
4 years later, Georgette and her guardians took Yao Hui's remains back to the family's mausoleum.
一般情况下，像有关家族大事来讲呢，像中国的传统做法都是老大来做。那么他的这个老四来承担这个任务，我觉得是很不容易的，很不容易。说明他很有担当，有这个家族义务的担当，对这个要紧的事情、困难的事情啊，他不怕困难。所以我讲的是个侠女子啊，侠女子很有侠气的。
Georgette was 16 when she returned to China from New York. By then, Zhang Jingqiang had remarried and fathered 2 more children. The vacuum left by her late mother was quickly filled by the presence of another woman. Georgette was the first among her sisters to meet their stepmother. Tu Yimin was 22, the same age as Georgette's elder sister, Therese. A year after Georgette returned to China, her sisters joined her in Shanghai. Often called the Paris of the Orient, Shanghai was experiencing a meteoric rise as a city of money and influence in the 1920s. Zhang Jingjiang had a big Chinese-style house in the international settlement area. For years, the house was largely the domain of men who gathered for politics and business. In the late summer of 1923, news of the return of his daughters, or golden flowers as the Chinese called them, suddenly changed the atmosphere in the household.
We've been learning about colors.
The cosmopolitan Zhang girls were far from ready for China's living conditions.
Oh, he's out meeting another.
Fluent only in English and French, the girls had to learn Mandarin from 2 great scholars hired by their father.
Zhang Xinjiang 对子女的要求呢比较严格，他们都受过正规的教育，都在国外受高等教育。
Georgette and Helen studied at McTire High School, an elite missionary school for young ladies of good breeding in Shanghai. It was here that Georgette met her best friend, Jock Yofeng. Years later, Yofeng was grateful for Georgette's friendship and kindness when she was leading an impoverished life in China under communist rule in the 1960s.
Dearest Georgette, your food parcels are very much appreciated, but your letter means even more, for it eased my mind to think that my dearest friend is safe across the ocean.
Dearest Yufeng, don't worry about those small parcels. They are truly drops in an ocean of love. I understand that you are required to pay $1 for each parcel you receive.
Georgette, who was then blissfully settled in Singapore, never forgot the hardships of the people in her motherland. For she was once part of their struggle for a better life. The Zhang girls arrived in China during a period of social ferment. When Western leaders gave Shandong province to Japan at the Versailles Peace Conference in 1919, 100 cities, including Shanghai, erupted in protest. The May 4th movement was a watershed event in China, a widespread demonstration that radicalized Chinese politics. With heightened social awareness, Georgette and her sisters took their political views to the streets. Their father and stepmother were surprised. The girls with refined, cultured manners had suddenly turned into political revolutionaries.
照理 按说这个父亲对他们影响应该比较大，哎，反而是孙中山的夫人这个宋庆龄的影响对他们更大一点，他们都倒向了这个宋庆龄，他们都跟宋庆龄保持了联系。20年代的时候，中国还是比较封闭的，比较闭塞的。能走上社会，能够读新学、读新式学堂，那已经是说新式女性了。你要参加革命的话，那更觉得好像这个人是奇女子了，是不是？
Politics never overshadowed Georgette's love for painting. Yet, she was often drawn into its chaotic world. Among the many of her father's political allies she met, one was extraordinary.
Georgette, viens dire bonjour to Eugène. Eugène, c'est ma fille Georgette.
Comment allez-vous, mon oncle?
Oncle Eugène a défendu la Chine à la conférence pour la paix à Paris après la guerre. C'est un homme très compétent.
Georgette Chen, vous me flattez. Georgette, quel joli prénom.
Merci beaucoup.
Est-ce que je peux regarder?
Little did 16-year-old Georgette realize that, 8 years later, this polite gentleman would become her leitmotif of love.
Du Pont-Neuf.
Exactement. Vous aimez?
Oh oui, c'est très beau.
Bravo.
Merci.
In 1927, Georgette left Shanghai with the blessings of her father and stepmother to pursue art studies. Before heading for Paris, she had informal lessons at the renowned Art Students League in New York for 2 years. But it was in Paris, the city she loved immensely, that she built her art foundation.
So when we meet under Paris skies.
It was also here that she found her leitmotif of love through a friend she knew in China, Song Qingling, wife of the late Dr. Sun Yat-sen.
Always find love, Paris love, pour toujours.
Georgette. It's so good to see you again. Good to meet you again.
Let me introduce you to a good friend of my late husband, Georgette Chen.
Oh, such a surprise. We met a few years back at my father's house in Shanghai.
The reverse hand painting?
You remembered?
Yes. Georgette?
Great. Looks like you both have a lot of catching up to do.
Please sit.
What started as a formal introduction became an unconventional match. Eugene Chen's wife died of cancer a year ago, and Georgette was single. The vibrant artist in her early 20s and the reserved diplomat more than twice her age somehow found a deep connection with each other. Georgette knew Eugene was no ordinary man, and she had high regard for his exceptional talent.
Chen Youren 是一个爱国的外交家，而且有铁腕外交家的这样的一个称呼。另外一方面呢，陈友仁也是一个很爱他家人的好的丈夫和好的父亲。
Eugene was born in Trinidad and became the first Chinese lawyer there. He moved to London in the early 1900s. There, he met Dr. Sun Yat-sen, who stopped by to rally the Chinese expatriates and ethnic Chinese to join the revolution. Eugene, who had neither been to China nor spoke its language, was so moved by Dr. Sun's speech that he left for Beijing immediately. He joined the revolution a few years later. After Dr. Sun died of cancer in 1925, Eugene achieved a diplomatic coup, his greatest contribution to China. While serving as an acting foreign minister in the Kuomintang's Wuhan government, he successfully negotiated the repossession of 2 concessions from Britain. This set a precedent for the return of foreign concessions to Chinese control. Although Eugene Chen and Zhang Jingjiang were colleagues in Dr. Sun's camp, they were strange bedfellows.
2个人的政治观点上面有一点反差，什么反差呢？陈友仁他是确实喜欢苏联、联苏、联共，我们共产党。蒋介石在这一点上跟他有分歧。张金江他对苏联有点排斥，对共产党有点排斥。第二个，他跟他女儿的关系年龄差距这么大，他是很难接受这个事情。
Eugene was only a year younger than Zhang Jingjiang. Eugene had also been forced into exile in Paris after the Wuhan government collapsed under the pressure of Chiang Kai-shek. He might not have been able to return to China or even make a living.
他偏偏非常爱这样一个人，张丽英啊，他好像在这方面跟他爸爸有点像，就是很具有这个反潮流的这个反叛的精神。 你这个高官厚禄，我不一定稀罕，哎，他越是只要这个主意好，他做的对，哎，他哪怕在落势的时候，他在流亡当中，他好像这个在非常艰难困苦当中，我也愿意帮助他，也愿意嫁给他，哎，他钦佩真正的这样的这个人格上的道义上的英雄。
Georgette pleaded for her father's consent in a long letter. She told him this was the final settlement in her life, and how she longed for lifelong happiness.
初，女于自幼所受教育与众不同，你终身不嫁，专心于美术，或可造成一生之幸福，本无更改之意。及至再三熟思，似原意尚属不对。原女虽万难有异于平常之男子，然亦出众。 如成君者，若有意敬爱于女子，其女子当以为荣也。女为美术学徒，而何谓真美术？深知选择之故，决意将从前终身不嫁之意取消。
At the same time, Eugene sent his own letter to Zhang. He stuck to his political principles while expressing his affection for Georgette. Since Eugene did not speak Mandarin, the letter would have been written by someone on his behalf. Although Zhang was unhappy about the match, he was unwilling to deny his daughter her happiness. In the spring of 1930, Georgette and Eugene finally got married in Paris. She was 24 and he 52.
他们这样的婚姻在当时法国的巴黎轰动了整个巴黎，很多媒体进行了报道，才到我们南巡，大家也作为一个新闻。
That same year, one of Georgette's works was accepted by the Salon d'Automne for exhibition, a great achievement for a young artist then. Eugene pampered Georgette dearly. He coddled her to the point of cleaning her shoes and washing her nylon stockings himself. Meanwhile, Georgette continued her art studies in Paris.
Perfect.
陈友仁呢给家里的孩子，他们当时在莫斯科写信，特别说他现在生活感到非常非常幸福。
In the midst of their marital bliss, the couple traveled back to China occasionally between 1930 and 1933.
Cheers. Cheers.
Cheers.
On New Year's Day 1931, Georgette and Eugene met a royal passenger on a French liner, Chenozou.
Bon appétit.
Thank you.
He was Tunku Abdul Rahman, who became the first Prime Minister of Malaya.
I have heard much about you, Mr. Eugene Chen.
It was a dinner encounter that left an indelible memory in Tunku's mind.
The pleasure is mine. These days I put my terror on paper.
Your writing is so sharp.
Not as sharp as my knife.
Indeed, indeed.
The attraction, no doubt, was Madame Georgette Chen. Mr. Eugene Chen was a quiet and reserved man and said nothing very much. But what he had to say penetrated deep into my heart and became food for my political thought. I considered him a master politician, a statesman of no mean quality, a redoubtable patriot of China at a time when that country was beset with so many hungry wolves at her doorstep, foremost among which was Japan.
Georgette's new world had just begun. The trajectory of her journey would, once again, be decided by history. Politics and war were destined to cross the path she now shared with Eugene Chen, a man who vowed not to relinquish China to any hostile forces. Georgette's first self-portrait, painted in 1934, appears to bear out the anxiety and uncertainty that awaited her.